will happen if you gave yourself permission to do blank. The second question is, who would get hurt if you gave yourself permission to do blank? What would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to do blank? And then what story are you continuing to tell yourself as to why you can't do blank? And then the last question is, what would be the new story that you would want to tell yourself if you allowed yourself to do blank? And whenever I do those questions, people are always like, tears, all the things, because it's very deeply rooted. And a lot of it has to do kind of going back to that space around, well, if I do these things, who's going to be there if I do them? Right. And then that kind of gets you into that space of not wanting to be abandoned, because if we're abandoned, then that puts you in a state of needing to survive, which our psyche says, if I have to survive and I'm not sure how to do that, then that means that death is imminent. And it's not like the more physical sense of dying, but it's like there's a death of you. I mean, for some people, it could be like the physical sense of dying, but it really rolls into that thought process that is a bit more of the subconscious. And, you don't know that that's what it is, but that's really what it is. If you can figure out, what those answers are, that gives you more space to be like, okay, am I surviving right now? What does it look like for me to go into thriving? And will I allow myself to thrive? And if not, then you run those questions again, because those questions are always going to come back to, who is it that you are afraid of?
You're listening to the First Class Life Show, hosted by Lindsey Vertner, a holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders who desire to maximize their impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So grab a drink, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Hey, First Class family. Welcome back to another episode of the First Class Life Show. I am your host, Lindsey Vertner, mindset expert and professional speaker. And today we have with us the Djuan Short. Okay, listen. Before we hop into the conversation, let me just give you a few pointers. Make sure you subscribe, like, love, share, comment, do all the things, because sharing is caring. And believe it or not everybody knows about this show. I know. That's why we're going to help each other out. We are here for one another, okay? So grab your pens, grab your notebooks, and be ready to just catch all of the gems that I know are about to be dropped. Because I know you are out there maximizing your impact while creating your first-class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So we don't have time to waste. With that said, hey, Djuan.
Hey, Lindsey, how are you?
I am good, and I'm excited because I know your professional background, so I know that we are going to get deep and raw and real and tough and get down to the nitty-gritty, all the juice. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Share with us, the First Class family, like, who is Djuan Short really? And I mean, give us the good, juicy details, girl. Where do you come from?
Yes. So I am originally from the DC, Maryland area, primarily PG County, for those people who know. But I've been in Philadelphia now for 10 years. It'll be 11 in August. And so since I've been living here, I do a back and forth to see my family in the DC area. And I've been doing it now for 10 years. So that's a big part of my life. And then I have like my Philly family that I've developed since going to graduate school and, working various jobs. So that's how I've kind of like seen myself between, almost like one person in two different worlds, if you will. And I think that has just been helpful for how I support people, but also how I see myself, because there's the fun, flirty, exciting, like loud person. And then there's kind of like, I need my quiet time. I don't want to talk to anybody. I need to go in. I'm ready to hermit. And a lot of my like clients that I work with, we always are laughing with each other, because I'm like, listen, there are moments where I'm just quiet all day. People say, well, what do you do? Because I work from home, and I've been working from home since the pandemic happened, but I continue, being in the house and working from here. But I am literally in quiet all day long, unless I'm on calls like this with you. And it's been really interesting to like have those moments of silence. So I really crave those. And I think one of the biggest things that I started doing since I've been working from home, like specifically for myself, is I started doing pole dancing classes. And so when I tell people this, they're always like, right? They have that same kind of response. And it's like, well, why are you doing pole dancing? And I was just like, I come from a yoga background. That's something that I started doing just to kind of like help and support myself. But the pole dancing, I had just broken up with someone and I was like, I need to feel sexy. I need to feel strong. And I just want to do something different with my body. And I remember going to the pole dancing class and I was like, I have no idea what is happening. I don't know if anybody has ever been in that space where you go into a class and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going, I'm excited. You ain't tell anybody, but you don't know if you're going to continue. But you get there and you're like, all right, you know what? We're here. We're going to try it. And like, let's see what happens. So I remember going to the first few classes and one of the girls was just like, I think you're holding yourself back. And I was like, no, I'm not. But but I remember looking in the mirror doing the dances and being like, why are you so in your head? Like, pole is all about core. It's about, you know, this part of your body being strong, but it's also about exuding this level of confidence that you know, kind of, you know, what to do. And I could hear my inner thought being like, girl, you don't know what you're doing. Like, we need to stop. And it wasn't until maybe December. So I've been going now for about a year. It wasn't until December I did my first climb and I was able to like do a hang from the pole. And, you know, I was excited. And I think about that process of doing pole and just being like, how did something like that give me so much more like confidence, but also made me feel more just comfortable in my body? And I think that as women, sometimes it's difficult for us to feel comfortable in our bodies, especially when we're so successful in other spaces. So that's something I am really proud of versus like a lot of the other things that I've done in my life. So yeah.
Listen, okay, just coming right out the gate with the surprises. All right. I did not know that you were into pole dancing, and we got to explore that because you said you were in your head, and somebody pointed it out to you like, you need to get out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
So before you said that, though, you had mentioned like you didn't tell anybody that you were going because you didn't know like if you were going to keep doing it and all of those things. And it just made me think about how often we hold ourselves back for fear of either what others might think or for fear of failing. Because if we don't tell anybody we went and it all went bad, we don't got to worry about the rejection or, you know, those things that come with our perceived failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we hold ourselves back. We hold ourselves back from doing the things that we might desire to do or from trying new things.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about that journey of one, first, just talking yourself into going to a pole dancing, especially with the stigma around pole dancing. Look, kudos to you. I know the body strength. I tried to whip myself around the pole and it was a fail, but I laughed and I had fun and I was like, new respect. I don't got the upper body strength. Mm-hmm. I barely could get myself off the ground and I was looking like I was hanging on for my life trying to swing around the pole.
That is funny. No, so here's the thing. And if I'm gonna be candid, right? I'm practicing this honesty and transparency thing for this month, right? I was one of Black girls in the class, maybe might have been one of two. And I think that was also interesting too, because like you said, historically speaking, when we think of like pole dancers, we call them strippers in our community. Mm-hmm. But in that community, these women that were attending, we call them dancers. We call them pole dancers, right? So there was automatically kind of like this shift in how do you identify yourself, but also seeing like where I come from, women that swinging around the pole, they're strippers. Where these other women are coming from who didn't look like me, right? Like they get to be called dancers and pole dancers. So first and foremost, that was just a big mind shift in that space altogether. And then it was, oh, now I'm in this space. I'm different, but I'm also someone who can navigate this pole in a very different way because there's all of this sexual energy and sexual connotation that's associated with pole, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was, okay, I didn't see myself as being like super sexual, but it was more like, I'm here for this purpose to feel better in my body or to feel like I understand my body. And I remember when I started going, nobody knew when I was going because I was going during the workday. So like nobody knew. And I found myself being like, oh, I don't want to put on any clothes. I was feeling more comfortable wearing like the little dancer shorts, or there were just aspects of what I was doing that was starting to feel more comfortable, and it was starting to feel more natural. And I remember like those thoughts that were coming in that said, like, you shouldn't be here. This is not what us educated women do.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what, women who have these things, this is what we do. Because by that point, I think I told one of my girlfriends, and she was like, well, I used to dance on the pole. I was like, really? She was like, yeah. She was like, but it's not something you talk about. She was like, because in our community, there's all the stigma that's connected to it. So she was like, I'm glad that you are taking the initiative to just do it as a hobby, as an interest. And I just remember listening to that conversation and being like, wow, like I get to be in this space, and I'm charting a path for women who are connected to me that may have thought about doing something like this, that they can actually go and do it. So that mindset has been shifting over time. And one of the things that I like about pole is that they tell you to take videos of yourself at the end during sexy time. And the videos are meant to help you see your growth over time. And, when else in the world are we taking pictures of ourselves throughout the year or throughout whatever it is we're working on? That doesn't happen. That's not really something we talk about documenting. But I look back at pictures and I'm like, wow, like I'm strong. So, yeah.
Hey, I know it can be exhausting blazing the trail and creating a legacy. And you're at the point in your life where you desire peace and rest. You want to enjoy both the physical freedom and financial freedom to live life on your terms. You understand the importance of prioritizing your self-care. And you know that you're worthy of transformational experiences surrounded by other high-achieving, goal-oriented women just like you. That's why you deserve to be treated like VIP at the First Class Life Luxury Self-Care Retreat for Women. You deserve to show up and just be you, away from the titles and roles that keep you busy from day to day. You deserve the luxury to fully unplug. It's time for you to embrace your first-class life. Visit firstclassliferetreats.com to secure your VIP spot today, because you deserve it. Yes, yes, yes. And so funny that you mentioned about how the different communities see pole dancers and strippers and just the whole thing. Because as soon as you said that, I thought, oh yeah, they're aerialists, and like I pictured Cirque du Soleil and the big productions with all the lights where everybody is sitting and watching in awe. But like if you take it to a different community, it's like, oh, you dancing on the pole, like booty for like dollar bills, y'all.
Do you got sturdy knees?
Right. What you doing in the back room type of thing. And it's like, no, pole dancers are true athletes. Like you got to have a lot of strength, a lot of body control, and you're really building your muscles. And it does take a level of confidence, because essentially you are putting yourself out there very vulnerable and in a naked space, because you don't have a lot of clothes on whenever you're working the poles, right?
Correct. Correct.
So what tips would you give to a first class family that's tuned in right now about how to get out of your head? Like if there's something that you want to try or something that you want to do, but you're too worried about, the stigma or what it'll look like, or we don't do this. Like, what are your top tips for getting out of your head?
So my first thing is always thinking about your why. Why are you doing it in the first place? Like, why is that a desire? Because I believe that those things that we desire, they're given to us for a purpose, and we can turn anything into a testimony, I think. And I also feel like if you're, like let's say someone is like, well, I want to buy a house. If you want to buy this house, first you have to identify for yourself that you can actually have the house. And for me, it was, I needed to understand that I can be strong in my body, but that doesn't mean that I have to be this strong Black woman. And I think that that was also something I was battling at the same time of being like, it's time to lay her to rest. How else can a woman be strong without having to be always emotionally strong in the way that we've been seeing it? So thinking about your why, thinking about what does it look like for you to do something in almost like faith, right? Like if you step, are you going to be able to step again? And if the answer is yes, and you're willing to move yourself forward, then it's okay for you to continue to take the next steps. And so for me, it was reminding myself that it's okay for me to try something new and to think about those deposits of all the times that I've done something new and I didn't know what was going to happen. And then being like, well, how did that feel? And where am I now? And being like, it was okay. I just had to take the first step. The other thing that I would definitely lean into is if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with someone in the moment, think about what type of relationship you want to build with whatever it is that you're doing. Because for me, I very much so enjoy pole, so much so that I go like 2 to 3 times a week, if not more. And I wanted to get better. So I knew that if I wanted to get better, I was going to have to commit a little bit more. And sometimes for a lot of us, commitment is the hardest part because we're afraid to attach ourselves to something and not know what the outcome is going to be. But actually allow yourself to do it, you may find that the rewards are a lot more than what you even bargained for. Like I go to this pole dancing class, I know the instructors, they know me, I've made friends, right? And now we're in an age where people are like, I don't have friends, it's hard to make friends, all of the things. Why not go somewhere and show up and be you? Whoever's for you is going to gravitate for you. And I think that that's the other thing. And reminding yourself that yes, people might look at you while you're doing what you're doing, but they don't know the process that you have to go through for you to actually feel comfortable going through it. And they're going through a process too. And what I've learned in pole is my square around that pole is my space. The same way I understood it in yoga. My yoga mat is my space. Anything outside of that doesn't concern me. And so I would tell people to just pay attention to what's happening in your space. Look up occasionally, but make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening in your space as well.
Yeah, that is so good because we can't live our lives always worried about like what other people will think because then they start to control our lives. But we are the ones that wake up with us, we go to
Yeah.
bed with us. Like we are the ones that are constantly with ourselves 24/7 and have to deal with the emotions of all of those. So speaking of which, you mentioned about, you started to catch your inner thoughts of like, girl, you don't know what you're doing. And just all of those things like that. So what are some ways that we can begin to catch our thoughts? Because I'm sure most of our thoughts are negative. Most of our thoughts are repetitive. And so we're bringing some of these negative emotions up on ourselves. We're bringing and inviting this fear into our lives. So what are some of your tips for being able to catch our thoughts? And then part two of that question, to then shift our thoughts.
So the first thing, if we're going to catch them, we need to know what they are. So I know a lot of people, they'll be like, well, I'm just in my head a lot. And I'm like, either you need to walk around with a journal or you need to go to the notes section in your phone and do brain dumps. For many people who have a lot of those negative thoughts happening, one is because there's no space for all of your thoughts to exist. So the negative ones are taking up more space. So if you do brain dumps, you're more likely to be able to see what's negative. And then you can look at that and it's like, well, is that true? And that's another way that you can start countering the negative thoughts. You ask yourself, oh, if a thought came through earlier where it's like, oh, I'm going to be late or, today's not going to be a great day. Well, is that true? No, the day hasn't fully happened. So what might the refrain be? So on that side, you would say, today's going to be great, or I'm making today a great day. So it's all about the refrain, and it's about you asking yourself, is that true? Does that feel good to me? And if not, how can I make something new be actually true? Or do I even like feeling that way? There are some people who like to feel a bit more pessimistic because it's comfortable, it's easy, and that resistance part of them that shows up, that's kind of like, I don't want to do anything that you're talking about that's positive. That's the part that I say needs a little bit more love. And so you may say, well, what is it that I need right now that's going to counter these negative thoughts? Because sometimes negative thoughts are showing up because we haven't given to ourselves, but we're trying to do something that's significantly new. And, you really want to give yourself that space to be like, how can I support me in the moment? Because nobody knows what your thoughts are but you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can I support me in the moment? This is very important because definitely as high achievers, as goal-oriented people, as leaders, we are constantly bogged down with supporting others. And, in working with clients, I've came across a lot, like sometimes you don't even know how you need to be supported. So that's like a question I like to ask, like, how can I best support you? Like if somebody is going through something, they don't always want advice or, sometimes they just want an ear or sometimes they just want a hug. Sometimes they want like somebody to clean their house. And so like asking that specifically, how can I best support you, makes them sit down and be forced to think about, well, like, what is it do I need?
And I think that that's a hard question for a lot of people, but that's actually one of the first few questions that I ask like my clients when they are starting to work with me. And they're like, nobody's ever asked me that. Like, your circle needs to change, but we can get it. Yeah.
So for that person that is always in that space, of doing for others, of leading, and, maybe they don't know what they need, or maybe they have an idea, but it's not so crystal clear how other people can come in and help with that need. Like, what would you suggest? Like, what is a process that you help with those clients for finding out and identifying what do I need?
So I run my clients through like a little practice and I'll share it with you. One of the easiest ways to figure out what do you need, especially in the moment, is you would place a hand over your chest. And this hand is kind of like that hand when you're in the car with your mom and she like slams on brake, but she does like this. It's the protection hand. But that hand for a lot of people is also very much so a nurturing hand. So literally you place your hand over your chest, you would close your eyes, and then you would breathe in maybe 3 rounds, and then you would ask yourself, your inner self, what is it that I need? And I always tell my clients, whatever comes up first, that's exactly what it is that you need. The follow-up question is, how can I give that to myself right now? So I've had clients say, oh, I'm feeling like I need a nap, or I'm feeling like I need to eat something. Okay, is there anywhere in your schedule when we're done that you can go and take like a 10-20 minute nap, or do something like a yoga nidra where you're not fully asleep, but you're going into a sleep-like state? What might that look like? And for a lot of people, it's really giving themselves the permission to do the next step, because you can say, well, I need this, but if you don't give yourself the permission to actually have it, then you knowing what you need and then not giving it to yourself, again, that's you denying yourself something that you really truly need. So that part around the permission piece is understanding that you are deserving of that you don't have to wait to go to the bathroom until this email is completed. You can pause and go to the bathroom, right? There's a lot of people they will hold themselves until a task is completed. No, you're deserving to use the bathroom when you have to go, right? So it's reminding yourself that the only person that can give you permission is you. And if you don't give yourself permission, you lock yourself up, and then you allow other people to tell you what you can do. And that's not really what a lot of folks want. They want to be, they want to have their own autonomy in life. So I would definitely say the permission piece, and really understanding what does that mean if you can't give yourself permission? Where does that stem from?
Are you loving the First Class Life Show? Then join our private Patreon community. Not only will you help to support our ability to provide you with great content, but you can also get exclusive perks like bonus videos and resources, discounts, episode transcripts, and more. So what are you waiting for? Join today at patreon.com/First Class Life. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/First Class Life. And you hit on it a little bit, because I was thinking that same thing about that next step in giving permission. A lot of times we don't necessarily directly say it to ourselves, but there's that subconscious belief that we don't feel deserving of the permission. And so in that case, like, how would we begin to identify why we don't feel worthy of giving ourselves permission to fill in the blank?
Mhm. So I have a few questions that I typically ask in that space. So one of the first questions is, what are you afraid will happen if you gave yourself permission to do blank? The second question is, who would get hurt if you gave yourself permission to do blank? What would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to do blank? And then what story are you continuing to tell yourself as to why you can't do blank? And then the last question is, what would be the new story that you would want to tell yourself if you allowed yourself to do blank? And whenever I do those questions, people are always like, tears, all the things, because it's very deeply rooted. And a lot of it has to do kind of going back to that space around, well, if I do these things, who's going to be there if I do them? Right. And then that kind of gets you into that space of not wanting to be abandoned. Because if we're abandoned, then that puts you in a state of needing to survive, which our psyche says, if I have to survive and I'm not sure how to do that, then that means that death is imminent. And it's not like the more physical sense of dying, but it's like there's a death of you. I mean, for some people, it could be like the physical sense of dying, but it really rolls into that thought process that is a bit more of the subconscious. And, you don't know that that's what it is, but that's really what it is. If you can figure out, what those answers are, that gives you more space to be like, okay, am I surviving right now? What does it look like for me to go into thriving? And will I allow myself to thrive? And if not, then you run those questions again, because those questions are always going to come back to, who is it that you are afraid of, that will take their love away from you if you do X. And a lot of times we're afraid that family, friends, whomever, they'll take their love away if we elevate to the next level.
Now, I noticed you mentioned abandonment, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we hear that word and we automatically think negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but you help your clients to love themselves with reckless abandonment, which that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a positive thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is reckless abandonment? Like, explain to us, what does that mean? How do we do it?
Yeah. So reckless abandonment, it was the phrase that I came up with because I was like, what am I teaching my clients? And a lot of clients that I work with, they really are dealing with attachment trauma, which is not a DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that we use for clinicians when we're doing therapy. That's not in that manual, but attachment trauma is a specific issue that most people come in with, that is underneath the guise of anxiety, depression, and a lot of the other mental health issues that we're seeing individuals deal with. But that attachment trauma, it shows up in relationships with people, because attachment is all about relationships. And when you have healthy relationships, the individual is able to thrive. They know that you, as a secure base, you're present, you're going to be there if they decide to venture out and come back. Like, you're not going to walk away from them, right? It's that kind of unconditional love, versus in other spaces, people experience conditional love, where it's like, if you don't do this, then there's the fear that this person is going to pull something from you. And in a lot of ways, that's traumatizing, because that person is now taking away your personal power, and or they're exercising control over you. So when we're talking about reckless abandonment of loving, being able to love yourself, it means loving yourself despite all the things that you feel other people may take from you, by understanding that you you're the only person that can validate you and have true validation. You're the person that has to come back through, reparent yourself. You're the person that has to ensure that your foundation is solid. You're the one that gets to determine who's around you. You get to determine who's your anchor center, whether that is based in faith, whether that's based in, any other, things that you may believe in. You're the person that gets to have this experience, nobody else. So whatever experience that you're having, you want to act like you're a curator of your experiences. And if I'm a curator of my experiences, why wouldn't I go full force into loving myself? Because that's what's going to give me the fullness of this life that I desire to have. So that's kind of how we're working that. But a lot of it is the attachment piece and all of those things as they flow together.
And it's so much needed, right? So how would this show up in behaviors as a leader?
Mm, mhm, mhm. So, as a leader, the first thing would be making sure that your calendar isn't a busy mess as a disguise for being busy. So, that's the first thing. We want to make sure that there's white space. We want to make sure that you are putting in your calendar things for you first, because a lot of people will do everything else and then try to squeeze in time for themselves. So we want the reverse. And when you do that, and when you are showing your team, if you have a team, or if you're a leader in your company, or there are people who kind of report to you in some way, shape, or form, those individuals are going to see, oh, such and such, they take care of themselves. Oh, they're out today. They're not like such and such over here, but they're still able to produce. And the reason that they're still able to produce is because everything that they produce is from their overflow versus from their cup. And so we want to first start with the calendar, because for us as busy people, high performing individuals, we want to do all the things, and then we're like, oh my God, I don't have time for this. So our scheduling is first. The second thing is making sure that you are investing in yourself, whether that is listening to podcasts such as this one, whether that is, filling yourself up with books that are speaking to who you are trying to become, who you are in your present moment. If you have money areas that you need to heal, you're doing work in that space. So it would really look like you're taking the initiative to activate in the areas of your life that you feel would help you to move to the next level. And sometimes those clues are present for you about which areas you need to give some attention to. So it also means taking off the rose colored glasses and being a little bit more aware as to what's happening. Because, if not, those lessons are going to continue to show up, and you're going to be wondering, why am I still playing the same record over and over again?
Mm. Looking for amazing products to help boost your first class lifestyle? Then head over to firstclasslifeshop.com, where you can treat yourself to personal development books and workbooks, lifestyle affirmation cards, adult coloring books, mugs, notebooks, hoodies, t-shirts, leggings, and more. All products were designed to help you master your mindset, walk in your purpose, and live your first class life, because you deserve it. So treat yourself today at firstclasslifeshop.com. Again, that's firstclasslifeshop.com. Yes, and I love that you mentioned about putting it in your schedule, like put your me time in the schedule. Even before you make out your schedule, because I actually just wrote a blog post a couple days ago, actually, about, part of self-care is one, identifying what that actually looks like, instead of like the rinsed and repeated stuff that we hear from the media, like, oh, it's self-care Saturday where I pamper myself all day. So for a lot of people, that is not self-care. And so we hear that and we use it as an easy excuse. Oh, I don't have time to take a whole Saturday pampering myself, or I don't have money to take a whole Saturday pampering myself, or I don't like to do that type of thing. So obviously, like, self-care isn't for me. And we think of self-care as like something that's optional, not realizing the crucial impact that it has on our mental, emotional, and physical health. And so I was saying in that blog, like, after you identify what it looks like, and I shared some tips, then it was next, like, prioritize it in your schedule. Go through and put 12 to 1, this is what you're doing, or 10 to 10:15, this is what you're doing, and then schedule all your other stuff, like, and then stick to it. Like, don't let anything derail you from your you time, because it's going to help not only to increase and improve the quality of your life, but also to increase your output, to increase your productivity, your focus, your energy, your efficiency, your effectiveness. All of those things are improved when we are regularly practicing self-care. And I know you didn't use the word self-care exactly, but that's what I heard as you were about that, prioritizing that into our schedule. And it makes me think about, we're talking about leaders and prioritizing that me time and doing those things. I want to talk about depression for a moment
Okay.
because, especially as leaders, society makes us think that depression looks one way.
Hmm.
Like it's locked in your room, everything's dark, you ain't getting out of bed, you ain't
Hmm.
showering, you ain't combing your hair, you're not talking to anybody. And like that is the main view of depression. And so
Right.
we walk around and we think, oh, I'm not depressed, not realizing that depression looks different for everybody. And so, again, this is not in the DSM, but what
Yeah.
I call it is high functioning depressive. And
Correct.
that means that you're still showing up, you're
Yep.
still putting on a smile, you're still doing all the things, but at the end of
Hmm.
the day, mm-mm,
Yeah.
emotional health is deteriorating. So,
Hmm.
share with us some of the ways and examples that you may as well be depressed and not
Hmm.
even know it because you're doing the typical things that we are to do in a regular day.
Yeah. So again, the first thing that always comes to mind is that schedule. Like if your schedule is book, 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 and you look up and you're missing doctor's appointments, you're missing appointments with your children or your spouse or whomever, that's a first indication that you might be overbooking yourself in order to stay busy, but you're doing it also because that kind of leads me into this anxiety piece that also shows up when individuals are depressed too. You're doing things because you feel like you have to. So that's going to be the first thing. The other thing might look like you not spending time with your friends, your family, your children, etc., because we need that social time to help us to recalibrate, but it also pours back into us, especially when we're around people that we love and we care about. So if you're not spending social time with folks, or you're always canceling or, saying X, Y, and Z, and then you look up and people don't invite you to anything anymore, that's also a sign. Another sign could be that you always feel exhausted, right? So there's tired and then there's feeling exhausted. Another one is health issues, primarily like GI issues. You might be having stomach issues, migraine issues, all of those other like medical health issues. Those things can start popping up when we're feeling depressed. We're significantly stressed out and you're not sure why this is happening. Gaining weight might be another symptom that you are, you're not doing as much, you're not moving your body, but you're eating more or you're not eating healthy foods at that point in time. It could also look like you being curt and I call it spicy, kind of like spicy sassy, where every time you talk to someone, it's almost as if like you had a knife and you were putting daggers into them each time. And people are like, well, why? It's very biting. People don't know how to engage with you. People walk on eggshells around you. Your phone calls are getting less and less in terms of people reaching out to you to tap in to tap in with you. Those are the ones that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, it makes me think about there's one particular person that I know because they work full time and, have a crazy work schedule. It was easy to blame like how much they like to sleep on, oh, I'm just tired from work,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that
Mm-hmm.
you're sleeping a little extra than you
Mm-hmm.
need to be. And you combine that with the other factors of
Yeah.
like, not wanting to do anything or
Mm-hmm.
those mood swings. It's
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're grumpy.
Yeah.
There's no in between. So for the person that's listening and excuse me, they just heard you say those things like, oh no, I checked some of those boxes. Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
next steps to start to pull them out of that space?
Yeah. So if someone is listening, I think it depends on where they are, right? Because somebody may say, oh, well, you need to go to the therapist. That may be an option if they have never been or they've been before and maybe they're thinking, maybe it's time for me to go back and kind of work with someone to get clarity about how I can reorganize my life. They can also have a life coach if they're feeling like, okay, maybe it's not to the red, but maybe I'm in the yellow and I just need someone to be my accountability person and assist me in developing like some lifestyle changes that might be significantly helpful. I would think those are kind of like the top two that show up for me. The other thing that I'm always really big on is just starting to move your body, right? I didn't say exercise. I'm saying move your body. And part of the reason why I say that is because most of my clients who are suffering from depression and anxiety, or high functioning anxiety and depression, a lot of them do not have outside time, right? All of this, we back outside. There's a lot of people who have not joined, who have not joined that movement. And I would say if you can get outside and you start small, sometimes we have to rebuild these habits, which is kind of why I think Automatic Habits or Atomic Habits, that book has gained a lot of traction with people. If we can build small habits of going outside for 5 minutes and getting some sunlight and like stretching and moving, you'll start to notice small improvements. But the key thing here is acknowledging that it's small improvements and that the small improvements are steps that you're taking to a larger improvement. I think a lot of people want to go from 0 to 100. I feel better. And it's like, it didn't take you 0 to 100 to go like this. You slowly was emptying your tank to 0. And then the other thing might also be seeing if you need to take time off from work. If your job has like FMLA, or if you can afford to take like some time and go somewhere. I'm always a big proponent when my clients are getting a little like down is, when is the next trip? And it has to be somewhere a bit more tropical, because a lot of my clients come to life when they're in warm environments. There's fresh fruit, fresh food, etc. So I'm always like, maybe you need a change of environment too. And a lot of people do not consider the impact of their environment on their mood and on their energy and their feelings and their behaviors. So those are some things that immediately like are coming to mind for me for that person.
You just made me think of a follow-up question to what you said about that change in environment, because I love traveling. Like, that's part of my self-care. Anytime that I have a conference I'm speaking at or a training that I'm doing that's out of town, like I'll usually make sure that I'm booked at least an extra day or two before and after, if possible, if it works with the scheduling, because that's kind of like my time to like just be myself. Because at home, it's like I'm mom, I'm wife, I'm sister, I'm cousin, I'm all the things, right? And so when I'm away, it's like, okay, I don't got to think about cleaning. I don't got to think about schedules. I don't got to think about cooking. All I got to do is ask myself, what do I want to eat today? Like, I don't got to think about what other people want to eat. Like, I can turn off. So traveling is a part of my self-care. But I can see that as an easy excuse for some people to say, well, I don't have the money to travel. I don't have the money to go to that tropical place that you're telling me to go to. And so they'll easily dismiss that suggestion. So what would you say to that person?
So to that person, I got to answer for you. So a few different things. So the first one, obviously, if you don't have the money to do a big trip, maybe there's a way in which that you can do kind of like a day stay at hotels. So like some hotels have like a day stay where you can be there from like 9 a.m. to a certain time period. And that might be the time that you just use for yourself. You take your journal, you take a book, or you just say, I'm going to sleep this entire time and just like truly rest. But then on the back end, you kind of have like a plan in place for when you come home. Like if you have kids, they're already together. If you have a partner, they're together, right? Like whatever it might be that you need. So when you come back in the house, you're not going directly back into your old routine. That would be helpful. I'm also a really big proponent on like day spas. So in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, there's quite a few like day spas that I'm always like, you need to go. It's like $50. I think we can manage this, right? And, I'll work with my clients on building out plans for like the day spas where they can go and be there all day. Another option is what we call a silence. Like you take a time of silence, noble silence, where you may go into a different space in the house, you cut off all electronics, and you allow yourself to just truly be in silence. And while that's not visually different, you are allowing yourself to be stimulated by just you and whatever it is that's in the current environment that you're in. Some people do it for 4 hours. Some people can do it for 8. Some people do it for a whole day. That really depends. It just really depends on where you would like to be. If it's nice outside, I would say maybe take some time and go into nature if that's your thing. But we're looking for spaces where you have low stimulation. That's the other thing too. So that way your mind can rest and you're not always like on go trying to figure out what comes next.
Yeah, that's so true because, you know, our thoughts and our brains, they're always going, 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 going.
Mm-hmm.
Decision fatigue, and, we got to make a choice for this and make a choice for this.
Mm-hmm.
Make thousands of decisions every single day that
Mm-hmm.
we are breathing and living. And so just finding that time to really shut it all off
Yes.
and not have any decisions to make, but just being present in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you suggest for helping us to turn off our thoughts? I mean, we know we can't turn
Mm-hmm.
them off fully, but just being present and,
Mm-hmm.
limiting the stimulation around us. So, we made the time. Now we're in the space, whether it's tropical or not. And so now we're here, we're alone with ourselves, we're alone with our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, we're alone with our emotions. And for some people, that can be a very scary place.
It is,
So,
yeah.
what do you suggest in helping us to bring it all in so that we're making the most of that time and we're not like anxious of being
Mm-hmm.
alone with ourselves or with our thoughts or, you know?
So the first thing is, I would say if you know that this is something you're kind of building yourself up to being able to do, you might want to start with the cell phone, since we all know that that's kind of the big pull for a lot of people. So for, I don't know about Android users, but I know on Apple phones you can do, this is no shade. This is not meant to be shady, but I know that you can put
I
your
like it, Djuan. I like it so far. Let me see
I
what
know
you're going to say next.
you can do not disturb. You can start putting your phone on do not disturb at different times of the day. So that's one way that you can kind of cut out the noise as you're building up to take this longer amount of time of low stimulation. So that's the first thing. The second thing may also be figuring out how you want to spend that time. So when we're saying low stimulation, we're talking about just being in silence, right? So that might not be, so you wouldn't be listening to music. You're not listening to podcasts or any of those things. You're really in silence, and you can time how long you're sitting in silence. And as you're coming in that space, thoughts may flow, but it's not your job to do anything with them. That's what the silence piece is about. And when the thoughts are flowing, you're acknowledging them, but you're not doing anything. You're just learning how to be in the moment. Another thing that I would definitely say in terms of prep, you want to talk to the people that you live with. If you have people you live with, or if you do live by yourself, you want to let the people know who normally are calling you that, hey, I'm going to be taking this time for myself. I would appreciate if, you didn't call me during this time period. I'll call you before I start, and maybe I'll call you afterwards or what have you, just so that you, one, have that accountability, but two, so that people don't interrupt you and then you feel like you have to return their call or you have to do something. So you want to give people forewarning about what it is that you're doing. The other thing is, I would always have like a journal or something to write with, just so that when things are coming up or you're kind of coming out of that moment of silence, complete silence, you can jot down anything that you felt like was really, oh, that's something good. I want to come back to that at a later date. But I wouldn't put any pressure on coming back to it either, because the silence time, one of my mentors says, she was like, the silence time, you may not exactly know what is coming in terms of whether or not you need to use it right now, but it may be something that you have to come back to at a later time period. But you just kind of want to give yourself the space and just know that whatever needs to process, it's processing in those quiet moments. So I would say the biggest thing is like prepping yourself for the silence, even if that gives you small moments leading up to it, so that it's not such a culture shock to you.
Listen, y'all. Didn't I tell you this is going to be so, so good? And I'm sure if you are in the space to take notes, you have just been scribbling your little hand away.
Yes.
So, Djuan, how about a game that we call First Class Favorite Things? Are
I
you
love it.
up to playing?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Let me grab my phone here because it's a really easy game. I'm going to say, what is your favorite? Fill in the blank, and you fill in the
Okay.
blank. Okay. But the catch is you got to do it in 10 seconds or less.
Okay. All right.
Simple, simple. Now, if you miss the buzzer, we got to have some consequences, okay?
Uh-oh.
So what is a consequence if you miss the buzzer? And it's not just for yourself. It's for me. It's for our first class family that's tuned in right now. And by the way, you are officially a part of this first class family now. So what is a consequence that all of us have to take?
Ooh. I'm supposed to answer this?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know. Can you pick it?
No. Let me
All
take
right.
off some of the pressure.
Yes.
Oh, you got something? Were you about to say something?
No, not yet.
Just don't think about what it is and like who is maybe gonna hurt, because what's a positive consequence to one might be a negative consequence to somebody else.
Okay.
Like if you were to say do 10 burpees, that is gonna kill me because I hate working out. I hate fitness. I'm not the gym rat. Like if you want me to work it out, you need to disguise it as dancing and then I'm all for it. But other than that, like don't come to me with no barbells. Like I'm not trying to do none of that. But for a gym rat, it's like, oh, I can knock that out easy. So
Right. Okay, I got it. So I think our consequence is going to be, if I get it wrong, everyone has to walk for 30 minutes a day for the next 3 days. And then they have to tag you and tag me that they were actually walking. So that way we can be like, okay, they got it. They understand.
Okay. 30 minutes a day for 3 days. Got it. And they got to tag us for accountability.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll start with something easy, okay? Because it's cold outside. When I think of walking, I'm thinking like outside because I don't have any gym memberships to go to a track, right? Okay. What is your favorite cereal? Go.
I don't eat cereal.
Oh, okay, we'll go with breakfast food. You got that one.
Avocado toast.
Avocado toast. Got it. Is it just the toast and just the avocado? Do you season it? Add any extras?
With everything seasoning, and sometimes I like to have my smoked salmon on it.
Fancy. What is your favorite book, title and author? Go.
The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz.
See, look, you're knocking it out. Ooh, what's your favorite quote? Go.
Ooh, broken crayon still color.
You're killing it. Y'all might not have to walk after all, okay? What's your favorite snack? Go.
Peanut butter pretzels and seaweed, dry seaweed from Trader Joe's.
Flavored seaweed or just the plain?
Just the sea salt.
Got it. Okay. See, can we give you something challenging? Ooh. What's your favorite joke? Go.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Y'all gonna have to walk on this.
Sorry, y'all. Listen, that was a setup. And I'm like,
I don't know. I'm thinking, Chappelle? I don't know.
Okay, we'll flip it. What's your favorite comedian? Go.
Ooh, I like Dave Chappelle.
Have you watched all his recent stand-ups and specials and everything?
The recent ones that have been on Netflix over the last few months and going into last year, those have been good. So they've sparked conversation.
Right. What's your favorite activity to do to relax? Go.
Ooh, reading. Reading is probably the thing that I do more frequently now.
Okay. Nonfiction or fiction?
Fiction.
Who's your favorite?
I don't really have a favorite author at this point. When I was reading at one point, it used to be Edwidge Dandicott. But I'm just reading at this point. There's nobody that I'm like, oh my God, I love this stuff. I haven't met a book yet that has gotten me in that space.
Gotcha. Okay. What's your favorite song, title, and author? Go.
Ooh, right now. Right now, I'm really feeling SZA's new album. So I'm liking the whole album, but I really do like Seek and Destroy, and I like Used.
I don't think I've heard those. They must not have came on my Sirius XM yet. So,
Probably not.
or my Spotify playlist yet. So you said Seek and Destroy and Used by SZA.
hmm
Got
hmm
it. What's your favorite place to travel specifically? Go.
Ooh, I really enjoy Jamaica, Montego Bay, and I feel like Jamaica is kind of like Miami for me,
Okay, okay.
right? Because you know how people be like, "Oh, I'm going to Miami." I'm like, you should just go to Jamaica. Like, it's not that. You'll have probably a better time. But yeah,
Right. How
I love Jamaica. hmm
I have been to Jamaica once, and was it twice? I think just once.
hmm
And I know the kids loved it. They've been to
hmm
Jamaica, they've been to Mexico, and where we stayed at in Jamaica, they had like a water park on
hmm
the resort, and like every time I saw my daughter, she was back with a snow cone. Like I don't know how many
I'm
snow
sure
cones she had that day because we had it was a family trip, so my kids weren't like in my eyesight the whole time. They got to be with their cousins and family, but every time I saw her, like I'm gonna have to tell these folks, like, don't give this one any more snow cones.
I'm sure she was climbing the walls, being like, "Hey."
hmm So thank you for playing our game, First Class Favorite Things. And First Class Family, make sure that you join our private Patreon community because you get access to our First Class Favorite Things list, uniquely curated by our phenomenal guests. So we have our reading list, our song playlist, because not everybody likes to read books.
hmm
And we have our favorite places to travel because we're a cultured people, right? And because we prioritize self care on this show, our favorite relaxing activities to do to help jog your brain in case you're like, I need something new. There
hmm
you go. So you can check out that and more like bonus videos with bonus gems from our guests, additional resources, transcripts, and so much more at our private Patreon community. So click the link, join today. Meanwhile, we're going to hop back into this discussion.
hmm
And if you are new to the show, let me tell you that First Class Life is actually an acronym that stands for all of the different characteristics and skills that you want to embody into your lifestyle to be able to create a first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness, however you define that for yourself. And if you want to know what that acronym stands for, you can do one of two things. You can either go to the very first episode of the First Class Life Show where I explain each of them in detail, or you can head to firstclasslifeshop.com where you can buy the book, First Class Life, 10 Key Factors to Create a Life Full of Purpose, Fulfillment, and Happiness. Hey. Meanwhile, beautiful, beautiful Djuan,
hmm
which key factor of First Class Life do you resonate with the most?
Ooh, so I would say thankful. And the reason being is because thankful for me is synonymous with gratitude. And I believe, and this is just through my relationship with God, that everything that you desire in life, it comes to you from a place of being in gratitude and being in thankfulness. So that's the one that resonates the most with me. All the other ones, I'm like, I ride with that. But that's the one I think that is kind of like my key to activating and unlocking the things that I desire in life.
And there's a quote, I think it's by Buddha, that's
Mhm.
like, whenever we practice gratitude and thankfulness, we attract more things to be thankful
Mhm.
for into our lives. And so, thank you, girl.
Thank you.
So, tell us, how do you impact the world as a leader today?
Yes. So I impact leaders primarily who are high performing women who may be dealing with anxiety, but other healthy or other issues in their relationships by being able to work through the shame and guilt for being able to live a healthy, happy, and whole life. So we're all in the mental health space, but we're focusing in on those specific issues that keep us from elevating to the next level. Mhm.
Okay. And do you have a book or a resource or anything?
Yes, so I do have a book and it's called Healing on Purpose, A Journey to Emotional and Relational Wellness. And that book specifically goes through exercises, concepts, and strategies for individuals who are looking to shift their life from being fragmented and being in parts to saying, okay, how can I live a full life by making sure my emotional health and my relational health are optimized in a way that really works for me. And a lot of people don't really realize that a lot of the issues that they deal with are rooted in your emotional health, in your relational health, which triggers our mental health and our spiritual health areas.
You just made me think of another question around
Mm-hmm.
the anxiety piece, because we talked about depression, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't fully touch on like anxiety. And it makes me think of, panic attacks as well, because, I have a friend that she didn't realize that what she was experiencing throughout her day, especially during stressful times, were panic attacks. Because why? Because she's a high achieving leader. She's showing up
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things. She's not clinically depressed or anything. And so she didn't realize, like, oh my gosh, that was a panic attack. And, it's until she was seeing someone and they explained, like, girl, you're having a panic attack. And so then she was able to kind of catch that there. But what are some sneaky ways or uncommon ways that anxiety shows up or panic attacks show up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that look like? Because again, we have this one-dimensional view of what those things are, not
Right.
realizing that we may be experiencing them
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
So, in what I see with my clients and just people around me, busyness. A lot. I mean, the busyness part, I think for a lot of us, it's easy to get roped into, especially if you're coming from that grind culture. To now, it's like, oh, we don't got to do a lot. To now, it's like, I think I need to do something. So there's that piece. The other one that shows up a lot is the thief of comparison. That creates a lot of anxiety for people. There's also this one about being seen. And when I say being seen, meaning like you have difficulty showing yourself, so you kind of like shrink yourself, and you can see someone who's shrinking themselves by their posture in a lot of ways. So I always tell my clients, be mindful about how you sit, be mindful about how you stand, because you may actually be showing yourself in an anxious state by how you start to shrink yourself when you're around certain people. The other one, we talk about imposter syndrome, but the other side of this is actually being anxious about doing well. So there's a lot of people who are like high success people, but they don't allow themselves to actually sit and experience the celebration, the excitement of anything that they're doing. It's kind of like they achieve and then it's like, well, what's next? Right? There's no pause. And that might also be an area where you want to kind of look at that, because what that says is you're still in a space of surviving. You haven't really allowed yourself to truly thrive.
Mhm.
Another one that automatically like comes to mind is you're controlling everything and everyone, and you almost make it feel like other people bother you for the fact that you have to give them the next steps for what to do, but that's actually your anxiety showing up, being like, I need to control something, especially if there's other parts of your life that are a bit more chaotic. And for a lot of people, if you do have a lot of chaos happening, they won't focus in on that area. They'll only look at the area of their lives where things feel a bit more control, but it almost feels very tight for them too to maintain that level of control. So those are the things that initially are like bubbling up to the top that I typically see on average.
That was so good. I just couldn't resist. I say she got to drop some more gems. Let me just put this question out there. I know we wrap it up. Tell everyone how they can reach you, how they can connect, how they can find you on these internet streets.
Yes, so I am most active. Y'all know there's so many platforms, but I am most active on Instagram. So you can find me via my business, Dahlia Rose Wellness. So DAHLIA Rose, ROSE, Wellness, WELLNESS, all one word. You'll see my picture come up. But on there, that's where you can find me the most. The other place that you can find me is on my other Instagram, which is Djuan Short. DJUANSHORT, all one word, all together. Those are the main places that I hang out. I'm on Facebook. Lindsay, no, I feel like Facebook, sometimes you're kind of like, should I be here? I'm not here. Like, there's a lot happening sometimes on that platform. So, you're just figuring it out. But you can also find me on Facebook as well. And again, it's my first name, Djuan, DJUAN. Last name is Short, SHORT. So those are my primary places I play.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Do
Yes.
you have any final advice on how we can create our first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness?
Yes. Well, one, I'm just gonna throw this out here. I am actually doing a self-love campaign this month, and I'm really focusing on self-love and self-care, primarily to help individuals heal the invisible wounds that we carry by making sure that we are engaging in self-care as a self-love practice. So if anyone is interested, if they go on the Instagram, there is a link in there for them to get a month's calendar of activities that they can do. And I think that that's really helpful because, like you said before, a lot of people have difficulty seeing like, well, what do I want to do? What can I do? Are these like high cost, low cost, etc. The other thing is really taking some time and jotting down things that you used to enjoy. That is one aspect of my work where I encourage my clients to play. And I have a lot of clients who are creatives, but they've learned to not use that part of their brain or use that part of their experiences. I would say play. If you used to be a writer, you used to paint, whatever it is, find some time. Like Lindsay, you said, if they want me to dance, if they want me to work out, I need a dance. I'm there with you. Like, you want me to work out? Let's go. We can dance. I don't know about that, like pulling weights and all that. That's not my
Right.
jam. That's not my jam. But that's a form of play, but that's also a form of release. And so when an individual is really looking to take care of themselves and really falling into love with themselves, you want to get back into a space of play because when you're playing, you're not so tight, you're not so stuffy, and you leave more room for flow and for life to happen the way that you are attracting things back to yourself. And it also helps with your mindset, right? Like if you are always operating over here and you don't bring in any play, your mindset can also start to get stagnant too. So that's kind of what I would leave people with.
Clapping,
Yes.
round of
Thank
applause.
you.
Thank you, Djuan, for
Thank you.
dropping. Thank you. That was sharing and dropping put together. Shopping is what that I make up new words all the time.
It's all right. It's all
For
right.
shopping those gems with us. Thank you for shopping those gems. Thank you for the phenomenal wisdom that you have shared. And thank you, First Class family, for tuning in this past hour because I know you could be doing anything in the world, but you have spent your time here with us, and we are very grateful for that. So make sure that you continue to go out there and maximize your impact while creating your first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness because you absolutely deserve it and so much more. Bye.
Bye.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But please be sure to subscribe to the First Class Life Show. And don't forget to rate, leave a review, and join our private community so that we can continue to provide you with great personal development conversations to help you maximize your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve it.